Today's agenda, I'm going to be spraying. You might ask, why don't you hire it out? Well, I did hire it out last year, and they contacted me when they were done and said, here's your bill, and by the way, we're never doing it for you again because it was so rough, we thought it was going to break our equipment. So I contacted a couple of other places this year, and they said the exact same thing because they know the history of this place. So my next option was to do it myself. And so I thought, well, you know, I have a tractor right here, so let's just use it and get me a rigid mounted 3-point boom sprayer. Well, then I got to thinking, if the co-op has $100,000 plus equipment and they're afraid that it's going to break theirs and it has all this fancy suspension, there is no way that my tractor is going to be able to do it without breaking something as well. So the next best option is inside my barn, and that's the purpose of today's video. So let's get to it. So this is what I am going to use to spray my Kawasaki Mule Pro-FX. It has a huge bed on it, can fit a full-size pallet, and can hold 1,000 pounds. This is what we're going to be using. I went to my friendly Atwoods Ranch Home store and I bought a 60-gallon spot sprayer and the largest boom kit they had, a 10-foot boom kit. And the reason I didn't go boomless is because I want to be very detailed on where I spray, and so I wanted to use a boom. I know 10 foot isn't very big and it will take me a while to get it done, but I'm not going to spray all 90 acres. I'm probably only going to spray about 20 or 30. And this is what I'm going to be using, which I also got at my friendly Atwoods Ranch Home, LV6 24D, and some Blue Alert dye. Now, I looked for a long time to try to find a review video on sprayers like this, and all I could find was the manufacturer's videos, and as we all know, they're only going to tell you the positives and none of the negatives. Well, I'm not going to do that, so I am going to put this all together inside of the back of my mule. And as you can see, this boom kit is actually made for a four-wheeler, and it even says right here on the sprayer box itself, it says that the kit includes ATV mounting hardware and it is not suitable for this sprayer. Some modifications required. Well, I'm going to take this boom kit and I'm going to modify it with some leftover purlin and other metal that I have to fit in the back of the mule. And I'm going to give you all the pros and cons and let you decide if you think it's worth the money. Okay, so the setup is complete. Now before I get into what all it took to make this work in the back of my mule, we'll go over some specs of the sprayer and the boom itself. Now the boom, as it sits right here unfolded, is physically about 8.5 feet wide. It's very simple to fold in. As you can see, it's got spring-loaded arms. You just grab them and fold them in. And the reason they did this was if you're spraying and you hit a tree or something, it'll just bounce right back and not actually bend it. Folds up nice and compact. Folded up width is about 44 inches or so. So it's pretty compact. The pump is an Everflow 4 gallon per minute 60 PSI pump. Comes with a strainer. Pump itself came installed from the factory. Also came with a pressure regulator and a pressure gauge. Those did not come installed. I had to install those myself. It's pretty simple though. You just screw this in, put a little Teflon tape on top, and then this basically just snaps right in to the pump itself. Electric is pretty simple. Simple little 2-port connection right there, running over the front of the tank to my deep cycle marine battery. This will last a long time. I'm not sure how long, but I'm sure it'll last several hours. and I wrapped it around my headache rack and put some Velcro on the actual on-off switch so that I could easily turn it off and on from inside the mule. The boom kit came with its own pressure regulator. It's basically the same one that came with the sprayer, but I chose to use the one that came with the sprayer for one specific reason, and that's just because its secondary outlet port was already plugged. So this on-off valve came with this pressure regulator. All I did was pull the pin and pull it out and installed it here. And the reason is because the boom kit's hose has a threaded end, and so I could easily remove it. If you wanted to use this as both a spot sprayer and a boom kit, you'd probably want to just use this pressure regulator that came with the boom kit because it already has both outlet ports ready to go. One that would hook up to the boom kit's hose, and the other outlet port, which is this one, that would hook up to the spot sprayer's hose. Okay, so let's talk about some of the negatives that I've discovered. There's only been a couple, honestly. One of them is this pressure valve elbow right here. As you can see, it's sitting at an angle forward. And the reason is this elbow is pretty short. And so either this elbow, it'd be nice if this elbow was a little bit longer, or if the entire pump was mounted a little bit further back, so this would be straight up and down. Because whenever I rotate this pressure valve to be perfectly vertical, it puts a lot of pressure on that hose. So it doesn't affect the function at all. It's more nitpicky than anything. I just wish that either this was a little bit longer or the pump itself was mounted a little bit further back on the tank. Another negative I've discovered are these clips. These are essentially just wedge clips that hold these nozzle heads in place. As you can see, they slide right out. And you slide them in, and then you slide these wedge clips underneath of them, basically just to hold them in place like that. Well, as you can see easily, this one just slides right out and the head will just pop right out. And the reason is there's supposed to be a couple of little nipples underneath this clip holding it in. As you can see under this one, they're there. There's one on that side and one on that side. And what those do, there's a hole in the frame, and those snap down into those two holes, and as you can see, this one won't come out. All I did was slide this wedge in just like this, just like I'm doing right here, and I folded this arm in, and the two nipples on the bottom of this clip snapped right off, and this head popped out. Same thing happened over here. There's only one nipple missing on this one, so it actually will stay in. But I wish those clips were a little bit higher quality. So what I'm going to do, keep that in. I'm going to find some clips, but I'm just going to take some zip ties, run them through these two holes right here, one here, just to hold this in place. Another negative I have, and this really doesn't have anything to do with the sprayer or the boom itself, it's more so on how I have it set up on my mule. This hose right here was run back behind and then through this hole. I had to take it out and run it over the boom because it was putting too much of an angle on it and it was restricting the flow. So like I said, that's not really anything to do with the sprayer or the boom itself. That's just more how I have it set up. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the build and what it took to get this in the back of my mule. Since this is a spot sprayer, it didn't come with any hardware or framing or anything, but the boom kit did. But it's made for an ATV. So the framing arms, as you can see right here, are way too short. Those arms would mount to the back rack of your four-wheeler, and then the tank would sit on top of them. These little spring-loaded brackets would just bolt right here. And so what I did is I had some leftover purlin from our barn build, and I decided to manufacture my own frame. Pretty simple. I just drilled a couple of holes to mount the brackets to. These are spring-loaded pins, which make it super easy to raise and lower the boom. You have multiple holes that you can select from. I had some D-rings here in the shop, so I went ahead and welded those to the frame itself so that I could use these ratchet straps, which did come with the tank, and I could strap it down to the actual frame. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I cut the purlin the length to where they would touch the front of the bed and be basically even with the end of the tailgate. It looks like the purlin is actually sitting on the tailgate, but it's not. There's no weight actually on the tailgate, so I don't have to worry about bending it. You can see a couple of braces that I didn't weld in. Here's the reason why. Because on the Mule, the bed, the very bottom is recessed. And I wanted those braces to be underneath that molded recess. And if I would have welded them in, I wouldn't be able to get the frame out. So I cut them pretty tight with my plasma cutter. And so they're not going anywhere. I actually had to hammer them in, so I'll probably have to hammer them out. Doesn't slide back and forth. Up in the front, temporarily what I did is I just put in some small tight bungee straps to pull forward on it. I definitely wouldn't recommend that if you're going to be spraying uphill, but I'm going to be spraying pretty flat. But I do plan on upgrading those to ratchet straps. So overall, I'm very happy with the way this turned out. The build only took a couple hours. It's very solid. And the nice thing is, it is easily removable. All I have to do is take the bungees out and take those two braces out, and it's ready to go. And if all I wanted to do was remove the boom, I just unscrew the hose, pull the two spring-loaded pins, and it just drops right out. I thought I would test the actual spray width. It says it's supposed to go 10 feet. I thought the best place to do this would be out here on the concrete so we could easily see it. So let's see what we've got. Looks like we've got a little bit over 12 feet. So that's 2 foot wider than what it says, which I'm impressed with that. And I'm happy about that because when you're spraying 20 or 30 acres, that's going to make a big difference. Let's take it to the pasture and test it out. Okay, so we're out in the pasture ready to test this thing. I don't know why it wouldn't perform. It did pretty good when I was doing the spray width test. So here we go. It's a pretty simple operation. You just turn a valve on. And as I said, I've got my electric right here. And it's running into the Mule, to my switch, and then over to the battery. So all we have to do is go flip the switch and see what happens. Pretty quiet pump, actually. Fans out really well. 30 inches for my application seems to be just about perfect. Pressure regulator is super easy to control. You just screw it in and it'll give you a little bit more pressure. Unscrew it to lower it. It's pretty simple. I'm pretty impressed with it so far. So if you want to build something similar, go to your friendly Atwoods Ranch Home or go to their website, atwoods.com, and pick yourself up a Ranch Pro 60-gallon premium sprayer, and a Ranch Pro 10-foot boom kit.